What's good, everybody? It's your boy D-Man here. Today we are actually about to look at another strange story. This one is actually called a scary in the middle of nowhere horror story. And y'all already know I did the last 3 little episodes for him, and these stories have been kind of creepy. Some were kind of out the box and weird, but I'm about to see what's popping with this one. So without further ado, let's go.
Welcome and good night. Have you ever been in a place that can only be described as the middle of nowhere? Not a soul in sight, or so you believe. Tonight's video is hosting Dr. Plague. Don't forget to check out his channel at the end of this video. And with that said, let's get to the stories. Over the past years, I've shared this story at many parties, dinners, and so on. Recently, my friend told me that I should share it with the rest of the world, so this is my attempt in doing so. September 2010. My boyfriend Dave, his best friend Tony, my best friend Liz, and I were all coming back to our hometown for our final year of college after spending the summer in London. We all had a fantastic time, staying in my uncle's apartment, partying and exploring such a big city. It was great. As we were all together, we decided to stop at a B&B for the night. The plan was to get home the next day at about 6 p.m.
So you messed
We
up
all
already
woke
with the
up
stuff in
early,
that bed and breakfast.
about 4 or 5 a.m., ready to set off again, when we realized someone had broken our mirror the night before, seemingly by crashing into our car with his own car. Or at least that's what we thought happened. Seeing as this was my dad's birthday present to me, and I had barely 2 months on it, I was absolutely fuming. We asked the landlady where we could possibly find spares or anything for the time being. She said she had driven past a makeshift scrapyard or something a while back. She wasn't sure if it's still there, but she drew us a rough map, and off we went. I wasn't very sure if she was right about her directions, because the closer we got to the area she'd circled in, the more desolate the surroundings were. The roads had now turned from stone to dirt. Around us, there weren't any farms anymore, just long, weedy grass and patches of forest. It had basically become a moor. I was becoming paranoid, thinking they're wild animals or just trying to find reasons to leave. This place was completely deserted. I was just about to head off when my boyfriend pointed out in front of us a handwritten sign reading "Cafe and Car Spares" 2 miles ahead. We decided to continue. We drove down a little cove surrounded by forest and all got out, except for my friend Liz, who was sleeping in the back seat.
Y'all just left it by itself.
There was a tiny cream hut with a cafe spray painted on the roof. There was also a caravan and a hill, or a mountain if you call it, of scrap metal. As expected, and to none of our surprise, we were the only visitors parked up front. The lights were all turned on, but there were no people around. I assumed they were still sleeping. After all, it was 6 a.m. We all walked to the pile of scrap and decided to start fumbling through, looking for a wing mirror or any sort of mirror that could do for the time being, until I could come back and get it repaired. Tony picked up what could only be described as a decade-old mirror and suggested we just take it and go. But me, being stupid, insisted on giving them money for it. "I can't just take it and go," I said.
It's a scrap
I
yard.
knocked on the door and waited, mirror in hand. A big, hard-faced man answered the door and at first looked very pissed off at me and tired. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, his face changed to a smile. The man leered at me for a few seconds, then, seeing the boys approach, asked us what we wanted. Tony asked how much for the mirror. The guy said, "Nothing. Just get to know us." I thought, fair
Oh,
enough.
hell no.
Why not?
What the hell
I
you mean fair
myself
enough?
can't believe that's what I thought. 2 more men came out of the patio door from the other side. They turned to me and smiled as well. Both skinheads. Their teeth looked like they've been doing meth for quite some time. They came over and I could smell them from a mile away. The guy then asked me to give them the mirror, as they were going to install it on my car. The man then introduced himself as Ian. He sat us down on the patio chairs and offered us some sandwiches. I politely declined, but he insisted that we must be hungry and told me to come in. He said that women are best at making sandwiches. I declined again, finding him a little bit sexist at this point, and when he asked again, Dave, more sternly, reinforced that I said that I do not want to come in. Ian muttered something and then came and sat on the chair with us. I became awkward very quickly as he started asking questions. It started off innocently, like asking how old we were, where we were from, and so on. And then it became a bit more uncomfortable. He asked me if I had a boyfriend, and then proceeded to ask what me and my boyfriend like to do to each other, how often we have intercourse, and private stuff like that, to which we both didn't answer. We sat in complete silence until we heard Liz scream. When we turned around, I saw one of the men that was supposed to be fixing my mirror had his hand grappling at Liz's leg. The other man was looking nervously all around behind the car. We got up immediately and sprinted off the patio.
You should have left the
Tony
first time.
running after the guys, but they both headed into the forest like maniacs. This really reminded me of the movie Wrong Turn, which hasn't ended well for any of the people in it. Liz was completely hysterical. She had woken up to find her alone in the car, with a man running his hands up her leg. I can't even imagine how terrifying that must have felt. I went inside the back seat trying to consult her, when Dave came around and asked us to look at the ground, noticing all the nails laid down on the floor. We looked over and there were about 12 nails arranged neatly on the floor right in front of our tire, as if these men were ready to pop our tires and keep us there for who knows how long, or what for. We all just about had enough. We were terrified and just wanted to get out of there. Mirror or no mirror, we were leaving right now. As we're driving away, I look back and I notice Ian re-emerge from the house with something in his hand. I couldn't really make what it was until my eyes had adjusted properly. It was a fucking rifle. He was aiming a real hunting rifle at us. I bursted in tears and hit the gas pedal, driving faster than I've ever driven before, hysterically. Thankfully, we were able to get back home safe. I still think about this story today, or what could have happened if I decided to go in and make this man a sandwich for some reason. Anyways, I think I finally understand where they got all these car parts for their glorious scrap metal pile.
Hold on. Pause on that note. One, I have a couple discrepancies with this story. First of all, y'all ain't never heard of a freaking AutoZone, O'Reilly's, what, any other freaking auto parts store you could have went to get a mirror? Not to mention, when you dig, if you were going to go to this doggone scrap heap, why didn't you just go with what your boyfriend said, get the mirror and get the hell up out of there? How hard is that? Like, why you didn't just do that? That would have been so much easier. Then on top of the fact, why would you leave your friend in the car by herself, sleep? Somebody should have stayed in the car with her, or at least stayed by the car, or kept an eye on the car. Something. You don't. That's your homegirl. You don't leave your homegirl sitting like that stranded by herself. Sleep with people you don't even freaking know. Like, really, what's wrong with y'all? That was where the problem was. Where my problem lies at. Then then on top of the fact that the man asked you to make, he asked you to make a sandwich, and then all of a sudden they offered you sandwiches. There was something right with it. If you got to keep persisting to offer me a sandwich, something ain't right with the story. Because that means either you poisoned it or you trying to keep me here some kind of way. Nah, it ain't happening. Like, really. I'm sorry, I just had to get that out. Continue.
When I was
Story
19, I worked for a company that allocated labor to rural areas of Australia. Basically, what you did was tell them when you were available, and they send you to a remote farm for a few weeks, where you do whatever they needed done.
I'm sorry, remote farm.
It was hard work and long
for a
hours,
few weeks,
but good pay and good fun if you got in with a nice group of workers. When this occurred, I was working on a large property. By the way, I was told it covered roughly the same landmass as the state of Maryland, USA.
Damn.
About 9 hours from Sydney City, and the property itself was about 40 minutes from the nearest town. In short, it was the middle of nowhere. I was working at the farm clearing brushland with 3
I'm sorry. I thought it was in my headphones at first. That's outside.
other guys my age from the city. Our boss was a guy called Jeremy, who owned the farm and supervised us while helping out with the work. He was pretty laid back
Hey, fully
and
clovers.
was generally really good to us. This summer in particular was very hot, and the work was hard. So
was
one
June,
day
July.
when the temperature hit about 38 degrees Celsius, Jeremy decided to give us the afternoon off. He said he knew of a water hole on the farm about a 25-minute drive north. I was keen for a swim, but the other guys just wanted to relax. So him and I hopped in one of the work trucks and
Nice one.
started heading across the property. It was mostly wide, empty expanses with a few clumps of scattered brushland. Jeremy wasn't much of a talker, so we drove more or less in silence. After about 20 minutes, however, he suddenly perked up and jabbed me in the ribs. "Do you see that over there? Beneath the 2 dead trees?" I should mention here that if you're not familiar with inland areas, particularly those in Australia, they are brown or red, and mostly flat and bland, meaning any bright colors stick out like a sore thumb. So you can imagine our surprise when we could see a large blue angular structure far off in the distance. We steered in its direction, and as we got closer, we realized it was a huge blue shipping container just sitting in the middle of nowhere. Jeremy was perplexed. I asked him if he knew what it was,
I'm leaving
but
it.
he obviously didn't. He said he hadn't seen it
I ain't
when
seen
he
it. I
drove
ain't
through
worried
the
about it.
same area about 5 weeks before, and he wanted to go and see what it was.
Why?
Initially, we pulled to a stop about 100 meters away from it. At this stage, I had a really bad feeling. The whole thing wasn't right. It's hard to explain, but if you can imagine seeing such a foreign object in the middle of a huge barren expanse, it had to be something weird. Jeremy, however, wanted to investigate,
Why?
which I understood given it was his property, but in truth I was really anxious. As we got closer, things got even more bizarre. There was a big diesel generator behind it thumping away, and a CCTV camera on each side, all motion activated so they buzzed from side to side, following us as we moved around. I tried to reason with Jeremy, something along the lines of, "With all the security, someone obviously doesn't want us here. Let's just go." He brushed me off, however, reminding me it was his farm, and whoever had put this here was trespassing, so he wanted to go inside. Despite all the surveillance, there was only a small padlock on the huge door. We had some bolt cutters in his toolbox, and after a bit of struggle, we broke the lock and went inside. The first thing I noticed was the rush of cold air as we got in. The place was air conditioned, which I must admit was quite pleasant on such a hot day. We searched around for a light switch, but I could already see this was some sort of IT setup. There were flashing LEDs all over the place, and the sort of hum you hear when a hard drive is working hard. When we finally switched on the lights, we could see a sophisticated, by the way, albeit somewhat cluttered office setup. There were hard drives the size of bar fridges and other computer equipment lining the walls, sometimes piled 2 or 3 high, and plastic storage boxes scattered around the far wall, and several desks with computer monitors arranged in the middle, complete with rolling office chairs.
Wait,
At this
cabin all
stage,
over
I
again?
felt like I was in one of those nonsensical dreams. This made absolutely no sense. We wandered to the middle and sat down at the desk to see if the computers could give us any idea of what the hell was going on here. My heart was racing and I just wanted to bolt. We had been seen by the CCTV, so if anyone was monitoring, they already knew we were here.
Pretty much.
Jeremy, on the other, was adamant we had to get to the bottom of this. So I put on a brave face and started looking through the computer. This went on for a while, but in short, neither of us had a very high grasp of technology outside of Facebook and Microsoft Word. The best I can describe it from my lay position is that it was endless lists of computer talk. It was like the old Napster or LimeWire download screens looked like. Just constantly picking up and receiving data, then recording it on several windows. I gave up on the computers and walked cautiously over to the far end of the container to the big pile of storage boxes. By then, I was pretty sure no one else was there, as there was nowhere to hide really, but I was still incredibly on edge. I decided, against my better judgment, to see what was inside all these boxes. My brief sift through this box still makes me feel sick to the stomach. It didn't take long for me to realize that this box was full of posters, DVDs, and photos, all of hardcore child pornography. One thing that still gets to me is that it was all neatly ordered into folders and smaller boxes. These people were organized. I immediately recoiled, jumped up, and ran over to Jeremy. I could hardly string a sentence together. I said something to the effect of, "Mate, get out, child sex, go, get the fuck up." I dragged him out, composed myself, and managed to explain what I saw. We jumped back into the truck and sped back to the house. The farm had no mobile phone reception, and we hadn't bought the satellite phones, so we had to get back to the landline to call the cops. Once we called them, they still had to make it all the way to the farm from the nearest police station, which was in a town about a half hour from the town closer to the farm. As I mentioned before, very remote. We waited, talking frantically about what we'd seen, until the cops arrived almost an hour later. They arrived with 2 4-wheel drives, and we jumped in and led them back. This is where it gets worse. By the time we got back, the container door was open, and there was fire inside. We had only 2 small extinguishers in the cars, and these did very little. The fire department took an hour to get there, by which stage most of the damage was already done. An arson report by the federal police found almost no evidence of the computer equipment described. and only traces of paper and cardboard. This means that whoever ran it knew we were there and had time to come and remove most all of it and get away. There were various ways to get off the property, and the landmass was huge, so there was no real way to tail them. Since the police hadn't taken us too seriously in the first instance, probably due to our poor explanation on the phone, aerial surveillance was almost impossible by the time we had pieced it all together. I took a keen interest in following it up, but with no real evidence of who might be responsible, the investigation went cold. I've kept in contact with Jeremy, and the shipping container is still sitting there on the farm, as it's too expensive to move. I'll never forget what I saw in those boxes.
Okay. First off, to be honest with you, if I'd have seen that on my land, yeah, I would wonder what's wrong with, why is it there? But I'm not exploring it because I ain't no telling what's in it. 2, if I am going to explore it, you said there's no real cell reception by the house, which means that you had your cell phone on you. So why didn't you have call somebody then? Which would have gave them time to actually come, while you still there, that it gave them time to actually come do whatever they got to do. Or the minute you saw it, you should have ran back, called the cops, and then came back there and watched. But if I am going to explore this thing, the minute I seen a box of child porn, snatch up one of the tapes. That way you have evidence. That's 1. 2, if you leave and come back or whatever, just had a 3rd, you could have snapped a picture of everything that was in that storage, in that shipping container. But before all that, if I would have did all that, I could have called some. If I see that thing on my land, I could have called somebody to come pick that thing up. Trespassing is already a crime, so which means that they could have brought it straight to the cops already on its own. But that, yeah, like he said, you going through all that, time to go. But you should have he should have at least snatched up a tape. That way he could have had the evidence to show that this was in this locker. You already got a witness, so it is what it is. All right, story number 3. We're about to get through this, because that was, yeah. The first one was creepier than this one, though.
So, to start this off, let me say that I'm naturally jumpy and really wary of my surroundings.
Oh, you got the ones on.
I'm not a quiet or shy person trying to avoid people. I do, however, feel like I have a great sense of when something's wrong or strange and will try to avoid it at all costs. I'm from a country in Europe where murder and crime is really, really rare. So you can imagine that people aren't afraid to walk around alone. However, I rarely go out by myself at night because I'm from a small town and the surrounding woods creep me out. With my friends, however, I do enjoy the night strolls. So last week, me and my best friend went on our usual walk. We know the roads really well, as we walk the same path every time.
At night?
This place, as some would say, is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
However, that never stopped us before. We never think about scary or negative things that could happen while on our strolls. The first 3/4 of our path is well lit by street lamps, and there are houses all around. Not a lot of them, but there are enough. Then we arrived at the tunnel, from which point there are no lights, and the asphalt road turns into a rocky, pebble one instead. As we approached the tunnel, we noticed a white van, seemingly empty, parked on the side of the ditch that's right next to the tunnel. This really sent a bad vibe to both me and my friend. However, we decided instead to joke about it and say how there might be people there who may try to follow us, and then who knows. As we continue on our way, we passed by the van and I mentioned to my friend that I thought I saw a silhouette of a person inside. My friend just brushed it off and decided to get mad at me instead, claiming that I'm trying to scare her. We cross the tunnel and continue with the path uphill. It is not long or a hard walk to get to the top of the hill, from which point you have to go down again. From that point on, you are surrounded by woods on one side and a massive, empty and open field on the other.
And y'all walking through that?
It was quite dark out, but we didn't mind. We were having fun, chatting away. It all came to a stop once we saw headlights getting closer and closer from behind us. It wasn't too weird for cars to be driving on this path. There were a lot of farms around and farmers driving all over. We decided to just move to the side and continue walking slow, letting the car pass by. And we look back again and realize it is not a car, but actually the same white van from before. We freaked out a little bit, but hoped that it was just going to pass. It didn't.
Nah, you were watching.
We kept walking slowly for another 50 or 100 meters.
Stop. Pause. Why are you walking slow? Why? I'm sorry. I walk home sometimes at night, whatever. Sometimes I do, but I know my surrounding. And regardless of the fact that me know my surrounding, if I see something that's unusual, I'm turning around, going back the other way. That's just me. In this case, you already didn't have nowhere to go. So instead of you walking slowly, you should have been speeding up to see if he gonna speed up. Once he speed up, you break out the other way. What the hell is wrong with y'all? Just why? I don't get that. You with your
meters, and the van was slowly trailing us behind. We sped up, only to hear the van doing the same, and when we slowed down, so did it. This felt like a deciding moment in my life, and we had to make a move. I tapped my friend on the shoulder, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Run, the field to the left, now." We both make a run for it, and ran faster than we ever have before. We kept tripping on the piles of soil in the field, however that didn't matter. We kept getting up and running like hell.
Thank you.
Finally, out of breath, we both stop and hop behind one of the piles on the ground, waiting and looking at the van from far. The van then turns on its high beams, as if he was scanning the area for us.
The
van then comes to a stop, and two men exit. They both had hoods on and holding a flashlight, again scanning the surroundings, seemingly looking for us. I could hear them mumble something to each other. One of them seemed angry. However, they finally got back into the van, and off they went from the same direction they came from. Both my friend and I agreed that this had to be one of the most frightening experiences we've ever had. The houses finally started to appear again, and the lights were finally showing us the way back home. I cannot even imagine what would happen if these people got their hands on us. I am never taking this path in the middle of nowhere again.
I bet you not. Like, first of all, why would you do that at night? I've lived in the country before, so I know how to, how it is to, walk past us and be in the middle of nowhere, this and the third, yada yada yada. But I never do it at night. Why? Because one, you can't see what's coming in front of you, what's coming behind you, what's around you, this and the third, regardless of the fact you got a flashlight or not. Two, you don't know if they got snakes out there, or or in his case, any type of wild animal out there. You don't know that. So why would you go there in the first place? Stay where you can actually see what's going on. Then on top of that, like I said, you got these people that's been following you since you walked past them. They were looking for you to get you for a reason. Y'all ain't never seen Hostile? I mean, I'm just saying. Like, if you're gonna walk somewhere at night, one, stay where there's light. Two, stay where somebody can hear you if you need to scream or run. Three, never walk nowhere at night with no lights whatsoever, no matter who you with. Like, oh hell no. Like, I'm sorry. And me personally, like, I'm gonna try my best to help you. I will. But the minute you keep falling, I'm gonna leave your ass. I'm just saying. Like, I'm gonna try to help you the first few times. But the minute you keep falling, is you gonna catch up with me and keep up? I'm gonna leave your ass, because I will. I'm just saying. But anyway, I'm sorry to say, but I had to. But anyway, I'm gonna end it right here. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I hope y'all enjoyed the story as well. Again, any comments you want, anything you want to see, put in the comments below. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And shouts out to all my new subscribers. Welcome to the D-Moneyx. And make sure you hit that bell to be part of the notification chain, gang, and see what's popping up next. In my last video, I did post a poll of this, so be sure to check that out. The poll will be at the top of this side. What this side I should say. I always get confused. It will be at the top of the icon on that video, so be sure to check that out. And to the next video, I'm gonna see you when I see you. I'll let you board. Peace.